The team comes together in the final showdown against Eli. Aida does her job, and Coulson and May have a moment. Or do they? It's the mid-season finale of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 8. The Laws of Inferno Dynamics. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of the mid-season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, there are spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, so we get to kind of wrap up the Ghost Rider storyline with this week's episode. And they do it extremely well. We really get the big final showdown with Eli. We get everybody coming together. We get Yo-Yo Rodriguez in and Quake and Robbie all together to take down Eli. Plus all of the rest of the team kind of doing their thing. So it's a nice way to sort of bring everyone back together and really join up for this big showdown against Eli. An overall episode was really good. Was nicely told, some nice little surprises in there, a lot of backstory, a lot of clear up. We get some motivation with Mace kind of cleared up. So it's kind of a nice way to sort of settle up the score and the tally and everything with what has happened in the fall season here. So with the episode itself, like I said, really well done. And like I said, we get to get a little bit more of the motivation here also with Eli. We finally kind of find out what has been his drive behind all of this. And I have to say, personally, that to me was a little weak. Just the idea of, I mean, we've got somebody who's smart, who's motivated, who, has these powers, and it's, we're trying to find out what is the drive, what is it that's been pushing you, that's made this tense? Were you fine, and then being exposed to the Darkhold, did that kind of make you evil? That might have pushed over the edge, but really what we're seeing with Eli is the kind of, I'm sorry to say, whiny, I was never appreciated and never got the respect, so now I must take it out on the world motivation. And I just thought that was kind of weak. It's a very simple, trite storyline, trite motivation for a bad guy. It wasn't even seemingly layered. It was just a lack of respect. And even when I got a job, I wasn't treated all that well. So therefore, I must grab power and crush the world around me. It's just, I don't know. I would have liked something a little bit more, at least a little bit more sure of it. Because the problem is when he was telling that story to Robbie and what was motivating him, he sounded whiny. He sounded, I didn't get respect, I'm smart and people don't like me and therefore meh, 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 meh. And it's just, to me, that was kind of a little weak. And I just wish, could have been some extra layers put on top of it. There could have been, yes, I was treated disrespectfully, and so I dedicated my life to being, pushing through and overcoming all of this. And the more I did and the more I achieved, the more I saw the uselessness of the people around me. I mean, some kind of layered effect I thought would have been a little bit nice. But here it was just that whole lack of respect idea. And I don't know, I just wish that they had given a little bit more depth to Eli than that. However, they do cover a lot of the ideas in the whole Quake. I like the whole idea of the kind of earthquake result of stealing the power, as Fitz put it, and then Coulson explains, from the Dark Force dimension. And that seems to be the source of his power. Now, this is not unusual at all. Throughout most of the Doctor Strange, again, because we just did Doctor Strange, these are the tie-ins. And it was even mentioned up in the movie, but if you go into the comics a little bit more in depth, most of the magic comes from tapping into these other dimensions, these other parallel dimensions, just all of the spells and stuff. Each time they even said that the Ancient One in the film was pulling her power from Dark Force dimensions. So all of these spells, the Crimson Bands of Sitarak, the Winds of Watum, all of these big Doctor Strange powers, he is tapping into these dimensions and using that energy in order to create the magic. That's sort of the basis of magic through the whole Doctor Strange philosophy and idea. So that is completely in sync with all of the rest of the Marvel universe. Now, the idea of these sort of quakes happening and the sort of physical effect, that's a little bit new. I've never run into that reading my Doctor Strange stuff. Maybe I missed something. And I was kind of wondering also, would it be sort of the same thing like they did in the film? Like this is a way of sort of breaking down, every time he taps into it, it's breaking down the links between, and maybe the dark force dimension would start coming over into ours. That would have been kind of cool. That would have been kind of interesting. But they didn't really get further into that before they came up with their big solution, which I have to say was great. That was a wonderful surprise, is let the bomb go off and drop it into the dark force dimension, let it go off in there. That was just beautiful. Easy way of getting rid of it. Clears out Eli. Of course, we got Robbie. He's got the rider with him. Most likely is going to survive. And in fact, they do give that little bit of a hint at the end where Coulson has that kind of surprise statement to Quake, to Daisy, is that, well, you know, the last one came back, the other one came back, which is implying suddenly that Coulson knows a little bit more about the rider than we knew about. Now, maybe he's done some research, maybe he's gone into the S.H.I.E.L.D. files and found some more info. But this obviously ties into another rider, and we know that Johnny Blaze is around, or we're assuming that that was Johnny Blaze back in The Good Samaritan that ended up giving Robbie his powers. But we'll have to sort of wait and see what that, really what this is, and I think a lot of those moments between Robbie and Eli also, we're here to set up a potential Ghost Rider spinoff, whether it's going to be on ABC, whether it's going to go over to Netflix, whether it's going to be, maybe it will be the new mid-season since Agent Carter isn't there, maybe they'll do the kind of like 10-episode shortened season Ghost Rider bit. In coming years. That might be the idea. There's some rumors, there's some thoughts, we don't know where it's going to be, but I guarantee this is not the last we're going to see of Ghost Rider. Probably this season. He might pop up later on, but I'm guessing they're probably wrapping for this season, especially with the big hint of where they're going in for the next storyline, which we'll get in a little bit later. Now, the other clarity of motivation that we got here seems to be we get a firmer understanding of Mace, and I'm kind of glad they did that. We've been sort of playing and suspecting what is his motivations throughout most of the season, especially after his deal with Senator Nadir. But at least we got some clarity on this. I mean, one, Mace seems like a reasonable good guy. I mean, at the very least, he's certainly good with the press. He knows how to put on a good false front, you know, with the press and talking with them. Oh, no, everything's fine. Oh, yeah, I'll get back to you. I mean, very press friendly, but then can turn around and have that more serious look and approach when dealing with stuff on the inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. But again, we're dealing with a lot of his questions and motivations, and I like the fact that even the characters that Fitz and Simmons and Quake and such, we're all having that kind of bigger discussion is what is it that's driving this guy? From the conversation early on with Coulson and May, they seem to know that he's a little bit self-serving, or at least they're assuming that his self-serving the statement is he's interested only in what's going to benefit him. His interest is only in himself, and therefore if he's doing something, he's got to find out what is going to be his gain out of it, that he's the natural politician kind of approach. So that kind of gave us a little bit more of an insight. But then we had that big scene between Coulson and him, which was great. It was Mace throwing down the gauntlet with Coulson saying, hey, do you or do you not want to be the director? Because you do seem to act that way. And I like Coulson as the director. But I understand, you know, Coulson's willingness, at least as they've explained that in this season. I think they've done it better with his ideas that, you know, we can't have somebody that was driving an underground, unauthorized spy machine using powered people on United States soil. Okay, that, you know, when you say it that way, it does sound kind of bad. And the idea of having an Inhuman in charge. Though I have to say, the little moment where he was talking with Daisy at the end that, yeah, I want an Inhuman, not necessarily that one, and then her comic book reference. Of course, obviously that's a little Easter egg from the comics where Quake Daisy Johnson was a director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And was kind of the face of it. So that was a nice little moment there. But really seeing that idea behind Mace's motivations and Coulson's motivations, that for Mace there, he is trying to put the team together, that he is trying, that whole idea of trust and stuff is really something that he's attempting to grasp. I mean, in the first scene, even when he was told about Aida, he handled that all rather well. You know, he didn't flip out. He stayed calm enough. He was even funny about it. I like the line of, I was mildly attracted to her. But he was willing to take that information and go with it. From a leadership standpoint, that's all really good. But I think it's that clarity of stuff. And Mace saying is that he made a deal with Nadir because Nadir had pictures, had basically leverage over S.H.I.E.L.D. We want to have pictures going out into the news of S.H.I.E.L.D. dealing with domestic terrorists and murders and killing somebody in a prison. No, you don't want that. So yeah, he kind of was backed into a corner. But his willingness to then turn it around at the end, I thought that was really great. When Quake absorbs all of that vibration, all of the earthquake powers, and has to go and blow it off, I thought that was great. She stored it up, had to get rid of it. Loved the nice flight scene and the drop back down into the crowd. But that Mace was stepped up immediately, didn't throw her under the bus, in fact was able to use that. What is Mace's motivation? It does have to sort of serve himself, but serve himself in the interest of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because when he goes ahead and says, Quake, no, she's not a vigilante. She has been working undercover on a special assignment going after the watchdogs as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. One, gives Daisy cover, so she's no longer going to be in trouble. Two, it makes all of those missions S.H.I.E.L.D. missions, which means all of her attacks against the watchdogs are now S.H.I.E.L.D. attacks against watchdogs, and that pretty much splits up Nadir. One, any photos that she has being used, we can use as this is an undercover mission, this is undercover operation, this is all sanctioned, whether or not you agree with everything in there, it makes it official. And it also puts Nadir back kind of in her place, because even though he doesn't know that she is running the watchdogs, it now really puts the two of those forces on opposing sides and keeps Nadir from her little bits of manipulation. Now, we still have to find out about her brother, but we will be doing that, I am sure, in the spring. And then there is Aida, who gets an appropriate arc this episode to set up for the spring. And we do get the early the early bit of a drop when her existence is revealed to Mace. And like I said, he does handle it well, but one of his responses is, doesn't anyone remember Ultron? A very bit of foreshadowing right there. But she does her job in this, and the idea of her being, you know, a shield to break. Yes, she goes in and is able to make the whole, portal in order to get rid of the bomb. But when the gunman comes in, she puts herself in the way between Fitz and Simmons. And actually, that was a great shot. Her kind of surprise at what being shot feels like. And then as she drops out of frame, we have Fitz and Simmons, both guns up next to each other, shooting back and taking the guy out. That was beautiful. I thought that was a great shot. And even her moments after that of saying, don't worry about the blood, it's just for effect, but I do feel this, and it hurts. It's quite unpleasant. All that was nice, and it makes sense, again, from a life model decoy. If you're supposed to replicate a human being, it's got to look right, you have to act like everything hurts. So all that was beautifully done. That all being said, obviously the final reveal that we have is going to give us the arc that we're going to be going into next season. And that is, of course, that when she went back to get her gear with May, she knocked May out, put her in the box, and replaced her with another life model decoy. So now we're going to have some infiltrators. And it's kind of a bummer because finally Coulson and May get to have their moment. They get to break open that bottle. But that's not May. They did have their little moment beforehand, and that actually was the two of them, where he says, hey, we're going to have to break open this bottle. What are we waiting for? And she's like, and we're not waiting for anything. This is all, it's nice. We're getting those two characters together. But what do we do when we have any of the characters together? Like Fitz and Simmons, you put them together, then you pull them apart, then you put them together, then you pull them apart. That's what we're going to be running in with Coulson coming up into the spring. So obviously Aida has turned to the dark side. And I'm also of a little two minds of this as well. On the one hand, it's another evil AI robot. Oh, it's artificial intelligence and it goes evil. It's exactly like I said. Mace said, doesn't anyone remember Ultron? just the idea if you make a robot and it turns on us and it goes evil, again, in some ways it's an overused trope. I was kind of bummed even at the end of last episode when they were sort of implying the whole evil Aida thing. It's just, I don't know, I would like more to be done. That being said, and even comparing to Ultron, one of the big critiques about Age of Ultron is it wasn't really the Age of Ultron. It was like the day and a half of Ultron. That it didn't really get as deep. I mean, obviously in the comics, there was a much bigger arc. There was much bigger things that were happening, and you can't do that in a 2-hour movie. However, you can do it in a TV show. And the idea of even not necessarily an android that can get into the internet and affect and try and get the nuclear codes and things like that, but from the idea of a life model decoy that you have infiltrators that you don't know, it's kind of like a Terminator, that you don't know if they're real or not. And especially if they seem to be able to hold many of the memories and emotions, as we had with Coulson and LMD May, having their little moment in their drinks and, you know, not wanting to be anywhere else but right here, responding the way that May would, I think gets things interesting, because then you can find out if she gets away, then who on the team is real and who is an LMD. Now with the Inhumans, the LMD's not going to be able to replicate powers necessarily, so that's really not going to be an issue. But the rest of your normal human S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, that's going to be a conflict. So I think that is probably going to be a lot of the interesting stuff that you can do. And that might be a little bit more fun. So while in some ways I'm a little tentative, reticent of like, oh, it's another robot, evil AI, especially even after Radcliffe's statement of like, you know, I know it's an AI and you've got someone with a questionable past who's making things, you know, he's trying to be out in the open. He's trying to, hey, here's all the work that I'm doing. It seems very excited to even be working at S.H.I.E.L.D. on further LMD stuff. Yes, this is great because it puts Radcliffe in a different mold than Tony Stark, which I like. So that being said, again, with an overused trope of the evil AI, the possibilities they could with infiltrators and LMDs and different things like that, they might be able to do something kind of interesting. And of course, Marvel always does a good job. They always, you know, whenever there's a question, they always seem to do a nice, proper payoff. So I'm going to go with them with the ride. I'm kind of excited. I just have to give that one little hesitant, please just don't make this like, just don't make it a trope. Do something interesting with it. And Marvel, I trust that you will. And then just a couple of small moments that kind of stood out for me. One, the little bond there between Robbie and Mac, I thought was nice, because now that Mac has had the writer in him, they do have that kind of little similarity of moments. They get a little bit more of an understanding of each other, and I liked how that played out. It was a small scene, but I think that it handled itself really well. And of course, some great lines this week also. Fitz's line, I hate magic and clowns with knives in the dark. Everyone hates clowns. Clowns are freaky. But I just thought that was kind of funny. And it's also, again, another acknowledgement of the existence of magic in the Marvel Universe. He doesn't say anything like magic doesn't exist, or it's I don't like magic. So I thought, again, nice. And the acknowledgement of clowns, always appropriate. Coulson's line, when it's time for Plan B, nice pause. Anyone? I'm up for ideas. Anyway, I thought that was great, because there always seems to be a plan B. There's always something strong, and in effect, the fact that, yes, it's time for the next plan. Does anyone know what it might be? Thought it was great. Perfect Coulson moment. And, of course, Coulson's quick to Aida. Does she dream of electric sheep? Obviously, that's a play towards Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the book that was the precursor or the basis for Blade Runner. So, again, more artificial intelligences, or in that case, artificial intelligences going bad. A lot of foreshadowing in this episode. And finally, must be said, yo-yo speed effects are awesome. Loved them when we first saw them. We got a lot more of it this episode. They definitely used their budget nicely in this episode. But all that looked really good. I thought it was just a nice effect to see her speed, especially that last bit where she runs around, pushes everyone, moves things out of the way, just the kind of little quicksilvery, grab the gun, put it in Coulson's hand. That was sweet. How we just hold it up the hand. I was wondering what he was going for there. and sure going and putting the gun in. Anyway, that was also a nice moment. But all those effects, all those little moments, that last little fight bit right there, I thought really, really well done. Oh, and Mace, nice combat suit, man. Looking good. All right, so I think that's going to wrap things up for the fall season. Now, good news, we don't have to wait till March. Normally, we got to wait until March before S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back. But of course, the past 2 seasons, we've had Agent Carter's been filling in that break between January and March. Don't have that anymore. So we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming back Tuesday, January 10th. So we got like a month off, and then we are right back in. Now, if they're still keeping the 22 episode order count, which I expect that they are, we've had 8 episodes here in the fall, so that gives us 14 for next spring. So if they are starting on the 10th, that gives them about 18 weeks until beginning middle of May. So that's their 14 episodes, plus a couple of weeks off for, holidays, breaks, anything like that. So that should work out really nicely. We should get a pretty consistent with only a couple of weeks off, and we should be able to get all the way through. And of course, we are doing the LMD, the evil Aida, or at least that's how it's going to start out. So we're going to have to wait and sort of see how that goes. How complicated is that going to be? What direction are they going to take all of that in? Like I said, if they're going to be tapping into some of the Age of Ultron idea that they couldn't do in the short amount of time of the movie, now they have the opportunity to do that. Whether they go in that direction, I don't know. But most likely we're going to be focusing on that, and this, like I said, probably the end of dealing with Ghost Rider. And they'll just have to wait and see if they're going to do a little spin-off on that. So, I hope you guys all have a great holiday. We're going to be off for the next month or so. We got one more review for Walking Dead, which will come out this Sunday, and then I'm off until beginning of January. But at least it doesn't have to be until March. We also will be doing Black Sails, and that starts up at the end of January. Keep an eye out for that. Plus, Legion did get its official date. That's going to be beginning of February also. So Wednesday the 8th, I think that is. So it's definitely a Wednesday, which is nice. So we'll have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Tuesday, Legion on Wednesday. I hate having to do 2 reviews a night. So next year, a lot of exciting, fun stuff to come on. So if you enjoyed this review, go ahead and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate that. Comments, thoughts, ideas, throw those down in the section below. What do you expect next season, half of the season is going to be? Which direction are they going to be taking Aida and the whole LMD idea? Do you like the idea of Terminator-like infiltrators in S.H.I.E.L.D.? Or which direction do you think they're going to be? Throw those down in the comment section below. You can always, of course, subscribe to me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. There it is right there. Or you can just hit the subscribe button, come back automatically whenever anything pops up. And you can do that by hitting the little picture of my face right here. There, that is right there. And I'm going to throw up a little review here, a little link there to our most recent review. You can check that out. So, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you all in the next year. Take it easy. I'm D, and I'm out of here. I'll see you next year. Bye-bye.